If you're watching this video, then you're probably a property service provider, like a buyer's agent, and you've got a pretty successful business so far, and you scaled to a pretty good level through referrals, but you haven't quite cracked the paid media side of things. You've maybe heard of Facebook ads, you've heard of Meta, you know you need to run ads, but you're not quite sure where to start. Well, if that's you, in this video, I'm going to show you what ad strategy is the best ad strategy to actually execute as a buyer's agency or a property service provider in 2026. So I'm going to take you through the exact framework and the exact strategy that we deploy into our clients' businesses, so then you can take that away and actually deploy it into your own business to start generating consistent lead flow and start closing clients through paid media. So which ad strategy should you actually employ? Well, it really depends on where your buyer sits on the awareness spectrum. So if you don't quite know what the awareness spectrum is, I'm going to be viewing that in the next slide and showing you exactly what the awareness spectrum looks like. But most BAs actually run ads to everyone and they just don't convert. So what ends up happening is they burn a lot of cash on Facebook ads that actually don't target the right people with the right creative and the right offer. So they end up actually getting tire kickers or time wasters. And when the right ad meets the buyer where they already are, that's when you notice that your ads actually perform the way you expect them to. So what you need to do is you need to match your awareness of your market to your offer, which then needs to match your creative. And that's when you find a winning formula. And in this video, I'm going to walk through exactly what steps you need to take to actually do that. And if you get this right, that is when you can scale your buyer's agency to 7 figures and beyond. So what does the actual overview of the market look like? Well, from a property perspective, we can look at the buyer awareness cycle like this. So every property buyer sits at one of these 4 stages, and your ad needs to meet them where they are. So first stage is unaware. They don't really know they have a problem yet, and they might not even be in the market for a property. So that is a very tricky audience to target. It's the biggest audience by far, but they just don't have any intent or any motivation to actually purchase a property. Problem aware is people who are frustrated, but they don't actually know what solution is out there to help them solve that problem. So they don't really know where they need to start. So, they know that they need to start building their wealth, but they don't know what vehicle is the right vehicle for them. So is it shares? Is it property? Is it something else, right? So they're in the problem awareness stage. And the next stage down is the solution aware stage. So they know that investing in property is the right solution to help them to achieve their long-term goals, but they don't know what's the right approach. Do they go with a buyer's agent? Do they do it themselves? They really don't know what the right solution is, and they're still looking around trying to gather information. The last stage is product aware. So they actually know that they need the help of a buyer's agent, but they're just looking for the right buyer's agent. So you can see how this is a funnel, right? The market that's problem aware is much larger than the market that's product aware, right? But every stage needs a different solution. Every stage needs a different strategy deployed to actually target them. So you can't actually all treat the market as the same. Right now, if you're treating all your customers and clients as the same, then you're making a big mistake. This is probably the biggest mistake that buyers agents and property service providers make. They don't understand where their client actually sits within this journey, and they don't actually match the ad strategy to actually target the right client and where they are in that journey. So this is what you need to do if you want to actually succeed with ads and start running ads that return 4, 5, 6, 7x ROAS, right? So you need to understand that these 3 levels of buyer awareness need to be treated very differently. So where they sit really determines your offer, your creative, and also determines your cost per lead. So you can see that there are several different levers that we can start to pull in our ad strategy depending on what your goal is, who you're trying to target, and what your budget is as well. So the first segment that we talked about is problem aware. So they're frustrated, they haven't really thought about solutions yet. So for this market, the right solution may be a lead magnet offer. So you might have seen a lead magnet offer in ads, right? Maybe it's a free guide, maybe it's a suburb checklist, maybe it's a market report, maybe it's a calculator. There are a lot of different tools that you can build to help solve these immediate pain points. And that is a great way for someone to get introduced to what you offer and what your solution is. And then you can slowly start to actually nurture them and move them along that life cycle or that journey that we just talked about. In terms of volume, this is where you get the highest volume. So you get the highest number of leads and you get the lowest cost per lead here, right? The problem though is that you get very low intent buyers. These people might not be ready to buy in the next 3 months, the next 6 months. They might not have the budget. So they're really low intent. And what a lot of agencies will do is they'll try to sell you this specific ad strategy. So they'll say, we'll set up lead magnets for you. We will get, cheap leads for you and it's going to be great. But the problem that you need to be aware of is there's trade-offs here. When we're talking about cheap leads, we need to understand that if we're going to get cheap leads, we need to target a big market. If we're targeting a big market, they're not going to have high intent. So they're going to need a lot more nurturing, right? This strategy does work, but I wouldn't recommend it for everyone, which we'll touch on in a little bit. So if you're gonna deploy this sort of ad strategy, then usually what you need to actually engineer a funnel that will take someone through a series of stages. So they slowly start to build trust and they slowly start to actually, go down that journey that we just talked about. So for example, you might have something like a checklist, and then once they've downloaded that checklist, then you might actually lead them through to a VSL funnel where they have the option to then take the next step in that journey, right? Whether that's a consult or whatever that is. Second stage here, guys, is solution aware. So like we said, they know the solution exists. They're just comparing the different approaches, right? So for this specific market, an offer that you could run could be a free training. So quite a common proven offer is running a webinar, a free training, a masterclass, helping them to understand what options are out there in the market and why investing in property is actually the best solution for them, right? That is probably the best offer to run for this specific market. And in terms of volume, that's going to be medium. So you're going to get a pretty decent volume. And the intent's going to be pretty good, right? These people are going to buy pretty soon. They may or may not have the budget, and the cost per lead is going to be somewhere in the middle, right? So it's not going to be a cheap leads that you're getting for sub $20. You're probably going to be paying, anywhere from $60 to $100 for these leads. But the pro here is that they have more intent, right? They know that they need to actually start building their wealth. They just don't know what the right vehicle is. And that's where you come in. You offer really valuable training for them. And once they actually get something of value, then you move them down your funnel, right? The last part is product aware. So they know that they need to find a BA. They know the buyer's agent is the route that they want to take, for example, using a buyer's agent as an example here. And the offer that you might run here is booking a strategy call, booking an investment portfolio evaluation, right? Booking in a call where you consult them. That is a direct funnel, and that's going to have the highest cost per lead. So these people have a very high intent because they know they need to find your solution, but the volume is going to be really low because these people are not as big of a market that you're targeting, and you're competing with a lot more people there who are targeting that same market. So you're going to get the highest cost per lead here, right? You're going to get cost per lead of probably easily above $100, but these people are going to be ready to buy very soon. So this is all great, right? Now you understand the different levels of the market. Now you understand the different offers you can run, the different ad strategies you can deploy, but which one's the right one for you? Well, where to start really depends on where you are in your business and the systems that you currently have. If you don't have any marketing systems in place, then what I recommend is you start at a solution or product aware market. What I mean by marketing systems is if you don't have a CRM in place, if you don't have sequences, communications, pre-call, nurturing mechanisms, VSLs, landing pages, then you're probably going to want to go for the solution and product aware market. Because, this market doesn't need as complicated or complex of a funnel because they have higher intent, right? So, higher intent leads are also easier to close. So if you don't have a sophisticated sales process, then you probably want to go target the higher intent leads. And, if you have a good offer and the right creative, all you really need is a calendar page, right? Somewhere for them to actually book in a call to actually discuss what your solution looks like, right? So this is very easy to set up as well. So if you're going back here and if you're going to target the product aware, it's super simple to set up, right? You just pretty much need ad creatives. You need maybe a simple landing page with some case studies and a calendar booking. That's really all you need for this market. And, if you, for example, went with the problem aware market, then you're going to need to actually come up with a fairly sophisticated funnel. And if you are actually starting your marketing journey, you don't actually know much about Meta ads funnels, and I'd recommend staying away from this problem aware market and starting with product aware. And, as you sort of slowly climb up the funnel, that's where you start to scale. So let's say you've already run ads to the solution aware market for 3-6 months and you're seeing pretty good results. Then you kind of go the next step up, right? Then you start to target the solution aware people. Let's say you've already targeted that market, you have a proven offer, proven creatives, you're pretty confident that you've nailed that market. Then you go further up into the problem aware market. That's where you start to create tools, resources, and invest time into actually generating like high quality lead magnets. That's the order in which you should be thinking about running your ad strategy. So if, for example, if an agency is pitching for you to actually start with the problem aware market, that's not a great idea. And what I'm going to be walking through in the next episode is we're going to be walking through how you can actually start to build some of these funnels. So we talked about the different funnels that you might need to target for these different markets, for problem aware, solution aware, and product aware. So in the next video, I'm going to be walking through the exact funnels that you need to build and step by step showing you what each stage looks like so you can actually replicate it for your own business. So if you are interested in that, make sure that you're following, make sure that you're subscribed, and you will get notified when that video drops. But that's going to be a really exciting video because if you're not really sure now what the funnel looks like, you're a bit confused, you know what strategy you need to deploy, you know what market you're going after, but you don't really know what it looks like, I'm going to walk through exactly how to build it. So that's the end of this video, guys. I hope that you got value from this video. We walked through exactly what ad strategy you need to deploy depending on which market you're targeting. So in summary, it's really important to understand what intent and awareness stage of the market you're targeting, what offer you need to run, and then match that with the right creatives. If you want to actually understand how to execute a client acquisition system that can bring in 5 to 10 qualified calls per week straight into your calendar, then we actually work with buyers agents and people in the property space to build out these client acquisition systems. So everything from your ad strategy to your ad creatives to setting up Meta to building your systems, your CRM, everything in between, our team actually helps you set up the whole thing done for you so you don't have to worry and stress about understanding how all this works, because it's quite complicated. If you're running a business, I get it, right? You've got a million things going on. You're trying to handle clients. You're trying to figure out all these things, and client acquisition is something you don't want to be spending your time on. If that's you, then use the link below to book in a call with our team. We'd love to chat about how we can help scale your property business to 7 figures using our proven Zenflow client acquisition system. Thanks, guys, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and have a good day.